Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock p.m. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, fresh off of his trip from Los Angeles. He landed about an hour ago, took the lift over, changed in the back seat, and here he is to tell us all about what he learned. And we are in the other studio, Zach. Studio B, you think for Berman, I think for Bo. I think some people might think for Butt. But, you know, got the tush push.
I don't know who thinks that. Okay.
All that stuff going on. How are you? You look fresh and clean for
Yeah, maybe B for Ben Nerick.
B for Ben Nerick.
We
right
have a
behind
Chuck
us.
Ben Nerick jersey right behind us. I feel great. Excited for the podcast. Excited for the show, I should say. Lot to discuss.
I feel like you coming off, now not a red eye, but like the early morning flight, two cross-country flights in a 48-hour span.
Less than that, 36 hours
is giving us a bit of a post-game pod feel for the old-time sickos.
Yeah, my sleep is all over the place.
Literally.
Yeah, literally.
Did you get some sleep on the flight back?
A touch on the flight back last night because it was a 1 o'clock game there, essentially.
Okay.
Right, so I was able to go to bed around 11:30.
You didn't have
there.
to do a podcast late.
I didn't have to do
night.
a late night show. Did about so went to bed at 11:30. Got up this morning at 3:30. Got a phone call actually from someone on the East Coast at 2 a.m. So I was like up and
very
down.
cryptic. Are you willing to expand on that? Was it Jeffrey?
No, it was my grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah. So
shout out to Papa B.
Yep. So so not a lot of sleep, but certainly enough to have a good show today.
All right. Well, we are excited to have you. We have a lot to talk about. This 5-0 Eagles team, Zach, their best performance of the season, and I do feel like that game was sort of take a deep breath because I know that we have been hemming and hawing about this 4-0 start, that they have not put together a full, complete game. And yesterday, there were a few things that they need to clean up. It was not a perfect game. But I think getting to see that Jalen Hurts can play at that level again, you sort of take a deep breath and you say, okay, we're 5-0. You know, there's still room to get better. But I know that you've been preaching patience, but it was 4 games without him playing at that level. We want to talk about the defense and what a great performance that was. But I do think that the top line takeaway was, okay, we saw Jalen be the 2022 version of Jalen. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, Eagles fans should feel exceedingly good this morning and this afternoon because, honestly, I understand expectations are higher this year, and that comes with the territory of being a Super Bowl favorite. But 5-0, man, that doesn't happen very often.
No.
Right? And there's a lot of teams in this league who are sitting here at 3-2 this week, and they're like, all right, there's reasons to be optimistic right now. 5-0. Jalen Hurts was awesome yesterday. You know, I haven't gone back and watched the whole game. I watched like the 12-minute highlight package.
Okay.
So saw that, and then just going through some of the numbers. I think, you know, we can take for granted Jalen and the Eagles because of what we saw last year. It doesn't happen very often that a quarterback throws for over 300 yards and rushes for 70-plus yards. Like, it happened in the Super Bowl, and we were celebrating that performance, right? And the Eagles overall, it was the worst offensive game that the Rams have played this season. Okay, and the Rams have played like teams that are, you know, highly thought of: Cincinnati, Seattle, right, San Francisco, and this was the worst game that they played. That says something about the Eagles' defense. So I agree. I mean, I'm not trying to like tell you all to drink the Kool-Aid. What I am trying to tell you is appreciate being 5-0 because what the Eagles are doing now is pretty rare in the NFL.
Back-to-back seasons, not for nothing. I think that's right. So we'll talk about Jalen Hurts. We will circle back on Goose Wisley from last week. We'll circle back on our roster to declare a winner there. But we do want to start with Sean Desai. But before we get into that, any other stories from the trip, Zach? You know, getting out to L.A. You said the locker room. You didn't say this on the postgame pod. Was actually not very good.
Yeah, the actual locker room itself was not really a conducive working environment locker room, which is odd because so much of the stadium reminded me of Dallas.
Yeah.
And Dallas is probably the best road locker room we cover in terms of the, you know, when I say,
right.
I'm talking about space, you got to understand in a locker room, they're trying to catch a flight. People are changing, packing their bags. Like it everything happens quickly. People
Sure.
are in and out. They need their space, rightfully so. And a lot of these teams, their visiting locker room is that's not where they invest the resources,
No,
right?
and purposely so,
Yes,
right? You know, make the other team
exactly.
uncomfortable.
And I was actually talking to a player last week about his least favorite opposing locker rooms.
Okay. And
what do you think came up first?
Green Bay?
No, but
Washington. Yeah.
Yes, Washington came up first. And so Washington's pretty low on all these lists.
Washington's pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there's those stories of like the pink wallpaper done to what is that? The Billy Bean thing?
No, that's Iowa.
That's Iowa.
Iowa
Okay,
football,
to bring the
Hayden
testosterone
Fry.
down.
Yeah, Hayden Fry. He was, I think, a psychology major.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so what was bad about this one? Proximity to the shower, too much nudity?
I just think the space was a little tighter than it probably needed to be, and just like the layout. I praised the architect last night of the stadium. I don't think the architect spent a lot of time on the logistics of the locker room, because it was just an oddly shaped locker room in terms of. So that was the only negative. Otherwise, amazing stadium, easy trip in and out. Love going to LA. Look forward to going back and spending more time there. Had a nice dinner last night at one of my favorite sushi places. Anywhere. It's called Sugarfish.
I've heard of Sugarfish.
Yes. And for like $35, you can have, they bring out like a sushi sampler. It was very good. And then I did some work. I caught a few hours of sleep.
With the stars over here, is that Berman?
I caught a few hours of sleep, and this morning was in the airport pretty early.
And how are you feeling about this Phillies game, Zach?
Well, taking game one was critical. I mean, everything at this point's gravy. Well, I shouldn't say everything. Tonight's gravy.
Zach Wheeler on the bump. I wouldn't call it gravy. You want to get this one.
So I'd be confident in the Phillies. I thought the Braves' best chance was Spencer Strider on the mound, game one, full rest at home, and Strider didn't deliver.
Well, Zach, things are, in fact, heating up in the ballpark. Every team is playing to finish the season strong. And with DraftKings Sportsbook, you won't miss a moment of the baseball action. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on baseball. Plus, all customers can take a crack at a sweet payday with DraftKings same-game parlays. String together multiple bets from a single game for your shot at a major payout. So what are you waiting for? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code PHLY. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on baseball. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code PHLY. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, and Louisiana. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.com/baseball for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. If you are in the market for a little bit of a tailgate scene before the game on Wednesday, we have a great tailgate with the PHLY diehards right outside Citizens Bank Park in the Jetro lot. Check that out. Lots of exciting stuff coming up this week. Now we can focus on the game.
Yes, let's talk Eagles.
Let's talk about the defense first.
Absolutely,
because I think we're always going to be offense focused, and we can talk about some of the things that they did on offense.
Let's not say you tend to be offense focused.
Well, because offense matters more.
Okay,
but shutting out the Rams in the second half after that opening drive for the Rams seemed like we were going to be on the verge of sort of a who can score more shootout coming. And, you're throwing out Mario Goodrich and Eli Ricks to cover Cooper Kupp. That first drive, I'm counting it's like completion on Goodrich, completion on Nicholas Morrow, completion on Eli Ricks, completion on all these different guys. Where are the good guys covering their best wide receiver? But second half, they shut him down. Darius Slay in the locker room said something to the effect of what they changed was just sort of going back to basics, staying on either side.
For communication purposes.
For communication purposes, which I thought was interesting. In the first half, you did see Slay following Kupp a little bit. sometimes in the slot. That was sort of on my mind too, even on the Puka Nacua touchdown on Bradbury. That is not Bradbury's natural side. You wonder what effect that might have played there. But
what did you think of the coverage on that play, real quick?
I thought it was pretty good coverage.
Yeah, I thought it was there. You need to turn your head, but it was a great throw by Stafford and a nice catch by Puka.
Yeah, totally. That was a tip your cap.
Yes.
Those guys get paid to kind of play. And I thought that there were some missed opportunities for the Rams. I didn't think it was a perfect performance in the second half, but certainly the defensive line got home. But I just wanted to sort of highlight, because every game doesn't have to be a referendum on Sean Desai versus Jonathan Gannon. I know that we exhaust that topic. But one of the big complaints about Jonathan Gannon over the past couple of years was that against the good quarterbacks,
yes, and Stafford's one of them,
those guys carved them up, okay? So I went back over since the start of the Sirianni era, 2021, 2022, 2023, and this is a pretty wide berth of good quarterbacks. The top 20 quarterbacks over those 3 years in EPA per dropback. So anybody who qualifies. And this is Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady, Jimmy G, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff. Of those 15 games, this was the third best performance that the Eagles have had, basically by EPA per drive, by points per drive, by success rate, by EPA per dropback. And those other two are, one of them is the Jared Goff game in 2021, the 44-6 game.
The Jared Goff game.
That barely counts, right? And I also, by the way, I threw out the Dak Prescott game at the end of the 2021 season. The only other game that was worse than this for an opposing quarterback was the Kirk Cousins game from Monday Night Football last year, when he threw a bunch of interceptions in the red zone. So Stafford, 0.4 EPA per drive. The success rate was under 50%. That only happened 5 times in this 15-game sample, including that game. And the numbers are stark. Obviously, the Mahomes performances are as good as it gets. But to see Sean Desai come out and have a different plan, which I think was another Gannon criticism, was that there was not a lot of in-game variability. I just think that if all you were hoping from with Sean Desai was trying something different against the best quarterbacks and not just sort of sitting back and taking it, I thought this was a really, really encouraging performance from him and the defense.
Well said. And I thought that it was a creative game plan. They did it without their top linebacker ostensibly in Nakobe Dean. They did it with mixing and matching slot cornerbacks throughout the game. They did it with a safety who missed time last week. So was really impressed. And to build on your point, I think it's very productive, obviously, to look at the Eagles' history. Sometimes kind of the rebuttal that you hear is, well, good quarterbacks do this to most teams, right? So what I also try to do is look, all right, well, how did this game compare to the other teams that this defense played, or I'm sorry, that this offense played? And I referenced this before, but the Rams, who've played against the Niners, who played against the Seahawks, who played against the Bengals, this was their fewest yards per game, their fewest yards per play, their lowest rushing output, their lowest yards per pass. And to your point about Sean Desai being creative, especially relative to what we saw from Jonathan Gannon over the past 2 years, it was the most that the Rams have been blitzed all season. Mm-hmm. And you don't typically think of the Eagles as a blitzing team, but when I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here. When you and I were chatting a few feet away in the office before the show, and I said, I know you had watched the film. I haven't watched the film yet.
Well, I wouldn't call it the film. I just buzzed
the
through
TV copy.
The TV copy. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think? I said, what did you think of the way Roby played? And you mentioned that he blitzed a lot. He blitzed a decent amount.
Right.
That's a creative way to use someone who literally just joined the team on Wednesday.
That's actually sort of what Sean Desai has been doing with his bit parts on defense. Like, it's why Nicholas Morrow had 3 sacks last week. It's like, these guys you can't necessarily trust to be in the right spot. Let's just sort of send them at the quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing we should mention is, I talked about how they were missing key players on the back end. They were missing Fletcher Cox yesterday. And Fletcher Cox has been extraordinarily productive this season. He's kind of like the mainstay. We've talked about his playing time. And then they were able to get pass rush production. They were able to get strong run defense from their defensive tackles. Jalen Carter was awesome, as we discussed.
The Goodrich Eli Ricks part of this game plan reminded me a little bit of E.J. Smith, and I'll explain why, because I think there was sort of a 4-dimensional chess thing going on here. In I think like the first week of training camp, EJ was sort of all about Nolan Smith on the sidelines, talking about him, and he's like, I kind of think that Nolan Smith might be a better player than Jalen Carter if I had to pick. Now, that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but if you consider that EJ was at that time working on a Jalen Carter story, going down to his hometown, trying to write the definitive Jalen Carter piece among the Eagles beat, I think he was maybe just throwing us off the scent. And he was saying, I'm gonna talk up Nolan Smith so you don't connect me to Jalen Carter. You don't see this as coming.
That's for
It's a bit of bit of a rope-a-dope. Okay. Maybe Sean Desai comes out in this game and he's like, I'm going to feed Mario Goodrich and Eli Ricks to the Cooper Kupp Wolves on this opening drive and lull the Rams offense into a false sense of security. And then we're going to come in with Bradley Roby and what our real plan is on defense.
Yeah, that's not an advisable game plan, right? I wouldn't suggest that. I don't know if EJ did that. If EJ did that, that's pretty impressive. I don't think that deeply about it. I usually just don't talk about the story I'm writing. Right? I'm not trying to get anyone off the scent. But I hear your point. I think part of it was experimentation. I know from asking around last week, there was a thought that like they would have to slow play Roby just because to take the full allotment of snaps. And we talked about this on Friday's show. To take the full allotment of snaps at that position without having played football for a month is a big responsibility. So maybe they wanted to see game flow, but Roby's a veteran. He knows where to be. He's like the Eagles brought him in specifically for this reason. So I see your point. Also, what you want to do is you want to try to develop the Goodrich Ricks combination. Goodrich surprised me in terms of how much he played because they've had ample opportunity to play him there. But Ricks is
very bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally put him on the game day inactive the first game without Avonte Maddox. Like that tells you what they thought of his performance.
Yeah. But Ricks has been working in the slot. I'll give credit to Andrew DeCecco from the Inside the Birds podcast. He wrote like a rookie diary, and he has Ricks he's talked to Ricks about adjusting to the slot in recent weeks. So I think that overall the way that the Eagles that Sean Desai in particular was able to compensate for the absences of key players, was able to adjust the game plan on the fly.
And you made this point over there that for all of the Gannon defending, like he did not have to deal with a lot of this turnover.
No, exactly.
5 games, 5 different secondaries for Sean Desai.
Yeah, you think last year in particular, that defense really didn't take on major injuries. I mean, his first year, Gannon's first year, he took on a big blow with Brandon Graham in week 2. Last year was Derek Barnett, but Barnett at that point was a rotational edge rusher for him.
You thought that was no big loss.
He had the Jordan Davis injury midseason, but it wasn't like the amount of injuries that and he had Avonte Maddox, but the amount of injuries that they've had this year, in particular in the back end, which was supposed to be the big question, that really jumped out to me. What
about, I know that you are, I think you won this morning among the early risers for the beat writers. You got the snap counts out first.
Was there any doubt in your mind?
Yeah, sometimes Zangaro beats you to it.
Dave Z is good. Dave Z's been he's had some really good stories recently, by the way. I'll give credit to him. He had a good Jake Elliott piece that ran on Friday where he spoke. Do you remember the other day on the show I think it was on the show when we were talking about Caleb Sturgis?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
he spoke to Sturgis?
Yeah, he spoke to Sturgis.
That's great. I love that. I missed that.
He called Sturgis. So I'm giving out credit on the show.
That's
credit
great.
to Dave Zangaro and NBC Sports Philly.
That was a good idea.
Yep.
So as the man who tweeted him out first and got your name on the scoreboard, what jumped out to you?
Well, Jalen Carter taking 70% of the snaps. Now, the Eagles didn't have a lot of defensive snaps overall, only 56 snaps, right? And that part of that was because of the offense's time of possession. So you look more at percentages more than like the volume of snaps. And Jalen Carter taking 70% of the snaps jumps out because that's not the way they've used him, of course. And then conversely, Jordan Davis taking 41% of the snaps. I thought Jordan Davis might take a little more. It was clear that Milton Williams was the number 2 defensive tackle. He took 59% of the snaps.
What do you make of that?
I think they.
What happened? Like,
they really
first
Milton.
2 weeks, Jordan Davis was looking like a superstar, and it feels like he's been pretty quiet since then.
Yeah, they really like Milton Williams. We know that, and I guess they just like that Carter Williams combo.
It's a little bit surprising.
A bit, but I think Williams has earned it with the way he's played. I do think they need to find more playing time for Jordan Davis, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
What else here? So we talked about the playing time distribution at slot. Goodrich played 32% of the snaps. Ricks played 23% of the snaps. Roby played 45% of the snaps. So really was a timeshare at that position. And other than that, I think it was kind of what we expected. Nolan Smith remains a bit player from a defensive perspective, only 14% of the snaps. But I think he had 8 snaps.
Okay.
But if we're also including the offense in this, it's really worth mentioning this because we talked about it on the show last week. We wondered if Olamide Zaccheaus was going to push into Quez Watkins' playing time. Quez took 66% of the snaps. Zaccheaus took 11%. So you're looking at 52-9.
Yeah, let's save that because we'll talk about that on offense. I think that's about to flip.
Interesting.
I think yesterday was the final straw for Quez in Nick Sirianni's eyes.
Okay, Sirianni did say, no, we'll get to it in a bit.
We can talk about it if you want.
No. In the business, we call that a tease.
Okay.
Stay after some of our ads, and later on the show, we'll talk about that. But DeAndre Swift is clearly taking over as the top running back. 62% of the snaps. The Gainwell's 38%. I always like to give you guys the offensive formation distribution because I think that can tell a lot. 11 personnel. They were heavy. 11 personnel again. 75.6%. 17.9% in 12 personnel, 6.4% in 13 personnel.
They remain very efficient in 12 personnel, though, among the best in the league. Back on defense, I think the return of Justin Evans sort of quieted things down a little bit in the secondary. I think that was a difference maker. Do you feel like if Nakobe Dean does, in fact, return this week, which he is eligible to do you think it's 1-for-1, him and Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow moves to the bench?
That's what I expect to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. I think Nicholas Morrow is an issue at the moment.
Now, I did ask you what you thought of the way Morrow played. I think that obviously
Nicholas Morrow or Morrow Ojimo?
Nicholas Morrow.
I saw a couple nice rushes from Morrow Ojimo in his first game of the season.
First game of the season. There were
of course, one of the core 4 of the Bo Wulf camp crushes from this year, joining Tanner McKee, Christian Ellis, and Reed Blankenship.
Of course, yes. Because you can pick 4, right? I think it's I lost my train of thought there. We were talking about Nicholas Morrow. The organizational investment that the Eagles have in Nakobe Dean cannot be understated. They want him to be the top linebacker here. So I think unless Nicholas Morrow played so outstanding in these few games, and he has been productive, but it's not just the stats, it's like the down.
I don't think there is any scenario in which Nicholas Morrow could have taken Nakobe Dean's job.
I agree. Yeah. So,
but you're saying unless I don't even think if he was out there as Bobby Wagner, I don't even think that. I think
really?
Nakobe Dean would be back in the lineup. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if he was out there as Bobby Wagner, that'd be a shout out to Sheil Kapati. That'd be a good problem to have.
There you go. Yeah, I think. I mean, I still think that Christian Ellis should have been on the field, but that's not necessarily here nor there. In terms of what they did defensively, I know you mentioned in terms of against the Rams, it was a high blitz rate. It was also the Eagles' defensive highest blitz rate of the season?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was interesting. There were a few plays where in the second half, there was the one downfield to Tutu Atwell where Stafford sort of missed him, but that was a really difficult throw to make the way that he tried to throw it. There were a couple times where he and Cooper Kupp were not quite on the same page, but I do think that the real difference was the defensive line just getting home, and then your boy, Hassan Reddick gets those back-to-back sacks because they do come in waves.
Hassan says bunches. Nick says waves. But either way, confirmed by both of them yesterday. They both mentioned that. Hassan Reddick.
Now, they do come in waves if it is, in fact, like a backup right tackle comes in and Hassan Reddick can just beat this guy up, because that's what happened.
Yeah. That it was Warren McClendon, who I saw. I'm giving credit to everybody today. Mike Sealski's column in the Inquirer this morning. It was.
You got to be more of a tessator and just take whatever and give no credit. Yeah.
Just say I read it, so therefore it's mine. So Jalen Carter said to Hassan Reddick, like, because John Carter went to college with McClendon, beat him with speed, and I think.
Oh, that's funny.
I think Hassan Reddick was like, yeah, no shit. Like,
wow, Zach working blue.
Something like that. So, but clearly, I'm not discrediting Hassan Reddick for anything, man. You see him come around that edge. They try to chip him with a running back. He's so electric coming around the edge that I just look at Reddick as, if he's back to what he was, and I wrote this, a shout out to allPHLY.com. You can check out our story today. When he plays like that, it looks as if that was last year's team. He can just be this great closer.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's sort of what is so impressive about this Eagles team as a group, and what was so impressive last year, is that the way things are built, it sort of simplifies the game, right? Like on offense, they've got a great offensive line, a really good quarterback, like 3 great guys to throw to, and you go up and you don't have to have the most complicated offensive scheme. These guys win one-on-one, and you get them the ball. On defense, you get a lead. You've got this great defensive line. They can tee off in these passing situations. It sort of makes everything easy. And yesterday was one of those games where it was like by design of, if you were explaining the game of football to someone who had never watched it before, like, this is how they built the team, this is what it's supposed to look like. That was sort of what happened yesterday.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. And it kind of worked to how the Eagles want to play too, where you get the lead, you try to make them one-dimensional. There was one stat that I couldn't quite decipher the meaning to it, but it was the fewest, or the lowest percentage rather, of play action that the Rams have had since Stafford became the quarterback. And I asked you what you made of it. And part of it might be that late in the game, they were playing from behind and they had to drop back. This is what Hassan Reddick said. They had to take deeper drops late in the game to go downfield, and that's when the pass rush came at them. Or maybe they were just so worried about the Eagles' pass rush in general. I don't know, but that jumped out to me. But you are right.
I wonder if that's a hip thing.
Oh, maybe so.
Just it occurs to me. Oh, what if maybe it's like harder for him to get his head around, or like to flip his body around with the bum hip. I don't know. Just a harebrained theory, because it was like so out of the ordinary.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, you do have good theories. But yeah, this is how the defense was designed to play.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, before we go on.
Yeah, I was going to read it. You go ahead.
Oh, I'm happy to take this because, by the way, I was talking to my older brother Josh the other night, and
the oldest of the Bermans.
Yes, and he was saying,
I have my own mnemonic to remember the order of the Berman kids.
And Josh he's in the market for some Flyers tickets, and he asked me about the Game Time app and where to put the PHLY code, and I showed him exactly where to do it, because if you're looking for Flyers tickets, you're looking for Phillies tickets, you're looking for Penn State tickets this weekend, the big Penn State UMass game, it's homecoming.
Yeah, everybody's talking about that.
Yes. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful, and Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you, with killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll have. I was showing my brother the app, and you can see the images of seat views. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Get exclusive flash deals for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and you redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Now, we are recording as Nick Sirianni's press conference is going, so I'm looking to see if there's any news items that have come out of that, but right now it does not look like that is the case, so we'll stay tuned there. But let's turn our attention then to the offense, Zach, and Jalen Hurts. I was so impressed with what I saw yesterday. Part of the stuff that's concerned me, just from an eye test standpoint, is like that internal clock where sometimes it seems like he's bailing, sometimes he's sticking when he shouldn't, and like when he's getting rid of the ball. And I thought it was like it looked great yesterday, and not just in terms of when he's in the pocket and not, but like waiting for the exact right time to get rid of the ball. Why are you smiling? What?
No, so I've been looking in your eyes. I haven't been looking up here.
Yeah.
And I really like the studio. This is the I kind of want to use this studio more.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to adjust the mic because it's a little high for me.
This one down here, this knob will do it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, that's that. Yeah. Matt H says EB missing a press conference for us. He does love us. I did text. The first thing I texted.
I knew
Bo,
when that text came in because this was one where they don't say what time the press conference is going to be. And when they sent the text this morning about when it was going to be, I knew that your heart must have sunk.
It was this afternoon, and I was trying to figure out, can we change the show? But there was no way we can get the show in, and I'd still be able to do the virtual press conference. I thought the press conference was going to be 2:45. That's typically when they do it. And I specifically made sure that I got a flight that got in before 2:45. It landed at like 2:30. And so I was planning on being on that press conference on the ride share over here. And
it's
then
my
when
only FaceTime with Nick Sirianni these days.
Yeah, when I saw that 4:15, and then I messaged you right away. And I was like, we're going to have to miss it.
I have no choice.
We got the show. This is the nature of these last minute things. So, yeah, but I do love our audience and appreciate you watching. To your question about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I thought what really struck me, aside from like, he had this really productive game, and we can get to the legs aspect of it because we obviously talked about that a lot last week. But as a passer, there were so many throws where it seemed like off a TV copy, he had to wait sort of a beat for the guy to come open. The A.J. Brown crosser deep across the field. There were a couple Dallas Goedert ones, especially on that opening drive that seemed like this. And it just seemed like he was seeing everything really clearly and had that sort of like internal pulse of the game that we saw at his high points last year.
Well said. I agree. And I don't know if it was simply the defense they were facing that he kind of had a beat on it. Maybe less complex than what he saw in those early, or I shouldn't say complex, less exotic than those early weeks. This is a defense that's frankly similar to what the Eagles, have run in the past. And maybe that aided Hurts, but I just thought he got his playmakers the ball. They made plays on the ball. He had some good throws, some good decisions. And this is the Jalen Hurts that is like a bona fide MVP candidate.
And the game really did turn on that final drive of the first half.
Exactly.
Right? Where we have seen the Eagles be a little bit skittish at the end of the first half of this season. Week 1, they didn't go for anything. Week 2, they get that long Jake Elliott field goal. But, you had 32 seconds left, 3 timeouts. You knew the Rams were going to get the ball at the start of the second half. You're down at that point. And the throw he makes to A.J. Brown over the middle, the one-handed catch by A.J. Brown, was a beautiful throw. It was one of the ones I'm talking about where like he had to wait for it to be the exact right time to throw the ball.
And I actually thought Goddard was open underneath, for more of an intermediate pass. He went downfield to A.J.
Right, and then obviously a great play by A.J. Brown, and you get the penalty.
Yep.
And then you get that sneak. But in terms of the running, I don't think that this is a case where we were making something out of nothing, because I do think he looked different yesterday, and he wasn't giving himself up in the ways that he was giving himself up in the first 4 weeks. He was turning the corner like we talked about him not doing, like Baldy talked about him not doing last week. And then there were the called draws, which we didn't see in weeks 2, 3, and 4. And so he's out there breaking tackles on these draws, but also on these scrambles where they're huge plays on third down. And you love a third down conversion rate. They were very good on third down yesterday, in large part because of his legs.
So question for you here. Do you think he was rabbit-eared? Do
Yes.
you think this was like him saying, oh, I want to show you guys, you're talking about me not running? You're talking about this
100%. That opening drive was very much like the rabbit-ear drive.
Okay.
You got the ball to Dallas Goedert right away. He had 4 catches on the first drive. He runs the ball twice and they call a draw from like the 12-yard line or whatever. And then they score in the red zone, which they hadn't been doing. I thought that was very much a rabbit-ear deal.
Yeah. So Nick Sirianni said there are games when he needs to get freaky, to use Jalen Hurts' term. And this was one of those games. Jalen said when the question came up to him.
Comes out in like a garter belt and...
Oh. I don't know what goes on in the Wolf household, man. No,
it's just one of those games.
So he brought that. The question came up, and he was like, Nick got a chuckle out of you for that, didn't he? Or Coach got a chuckle out of you, didn't he? For using that. But yeah, he said
those whips.
He said it was one of those. Again, I don't know what goes on in the Wolf household. He said again, he said it was just one of the. He said the time. He said something like, when the time's right, it comes. I think he always had that in his pocket. I do think, to your point, there have been that run to the right side where he juked the defender. Well, he broke one tackle and juked another defender. Had the big gain. I think that's one that in recent weeks he's down on the ground.
I totally agree.
He's giving himself up before that contact. So sometimes this isn't maybe rabbit-eared as much as I think, for as complex as football is, and as much as like the people who coach it and play it want to make like the public doesn't understand what's going on. Sometimes we see the same thing they do. And sometimes they know the same thing we know, that this is a special player who can do special things, and that in order for him to do those special things, you have to allow him to do it. And that was my take from that game. This has always been in him. I know we talked about, was he injured? Now, I am curious if he did take some big hits last night. So I'm curious how he came out of that game. But overall, I thought that this was the Jalen Hurts that I'm used to seeing.
What else sort of stood out to you on offense?
DeAndre Swift he got some tough yards, man.
Yeah, he's really good.
Well, I mean, some of us said that back in April.
He's way better than you built him to be.
He's way better than I built him to be.
Yes.
I built him to be like Walter Payton, Barry Sanders.
I know.
And he's better than that. Yeah, he's really good.
He's really good.
He's versatile. He gets extra yards for you. I think I said on our former podcast this summer that he's going to be an upgrade over Miles Sanders. And he is an upgrade over Miles Sanders. Credit to Howie, but really credit to DeAndre, because he's making himself some
credit
money.
to you.
Not credit to me, man. I'm just.
I don't think that's a super high bar.
I mean, let's give Miles Sanders some credit. He was a 1,200-yard runner last year, right?
He's like losing his job to Chuba Hubbard right now.
Yeah. I mean, respect the Canadians, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Did you know he was Canadian?
Chuba?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, well, now you do.
Now I do.
Sean says Zach was spot on. Sean, I appreciate that, man. Conan, take a whiff, ZB. I've been on the plane all day. I don't want to take a whiff, but I appreciate that.
What
Conan.
did you do to just? I know that there are certain listeners who want to know the answer. What did you do to change today?
So I got to tip my cap to you. Okay. We have a bathroom over here that is actually very conducive for
extremely spacious.
I did not know that like existed back there. I mean, so yeah, it was much better than the backseat of my car, and certainly better than the
backseat of the lift that you were riding in.
No, than the airport. But I changed on Friday.
Yeah.
I changed on Friday night in an Saturday night in an airport bathroom, And
Interesting.
Yeah, that I don't like that, man. Okay, I can give you stories about that.
JFK too, I'm sure was
Yeah.
not great.
Yes.
You didn't want to do it at Lucali's?
No, there's no place to do it at Lucali's. But yeah, so I changed here. You saw me come in my travel gear.
I did,
so to speak, and had changed. I changed there very quickly, and brushed my teeth.
You strike me as a man who likes to have travel gear. Like you sort of dress for the occasion. You like to have your casual outfits. You like to have your work outfits. You like to have your travel outfits.
No, I used to. I don't know why we're getting into this, but I guess this is the
Why
show,
not?
Right? I'll give credit to my wife Emily on this. I used to just travel in my jeans and she I remember vividly. I was going to London in 2018. Yeah, 2018.
18,
yeah. And she's like, why aren't you in sweatpants? I was like, and so I've added some joggers to the repertoire since then.
Okay.
And now, so I have more.
It wasn't out of like a misplaced sense of old timey. We used to dress up to travel. All these people are in sweats. Like you don't look down upon that. It just hadn't occurred to you.
It was just like this is how I'm. This is what I wear when I go out. But yeah, so now I'm probably a little more leisurely when I'm flying.
Now there is a window in that changing bathroom. Did you take a peek to see if anybody was paying attention?
I mean, we're 7 floors up here, so no, and I did not. I was pretty brief in there.
Pun intended.
No, no pun intended. I was quick in there, brisk, however you want to frame it.
All right, let's talk about the Quez Watkins Olamide Zaccheaus thing that we teased earlier. I think that play, the 3rd and 2,
that got Sirianni fired up.
It was the same play they called in the first play of the game, right? A quick screen to Quez Watkins with Devontae and A.J. Brown blocking for him. On the first play of the game, he gets 5 yards, right? And looked like a play that could have broken if he had beaten that one tackle. Sirianni is so detail-oriented. He cares so much about the details. And I think Quez Watkins is the guy on offense who is like most commonly the one not following the details. I think that throw that Jalen Hurts overthrew him on during this game, I think it's because Quez is not running the right depth of the route. We just look at where the linebacker is. And I know that he's on the field because he has the most speed, right? And he's running these clear out routes, and that's great. But I just don't believe that knowing Nick Sirianni the way that he is wired and knowing how much he cares about that position, that he's going to continue putting out the guy who keeps making these fundamental mistakes when he has an option in Olamide Zaccheaus who does do those things correctly. It seems like, at least from the outside.
I hear your point. Now, Sirianni did make the point post-game that Quez's speed gives a different dimension to the offense, like you said. And you've spoken quite a bit in the past. The term you've used, I believe, is the geometry of the offense, correct?
Yeah, the spacing, yeah, sure.
And he affects that in a significant way. And I was asking
I've always liked Quez, and because that speed is real.
Yeah, correct. You literally liked him coming out of Southern Miss. You called that one. And you liked him more than John Hightower, and you were correct there. But I spoke to A.J. Brown last week about this, and A.J. says getting Quez back is huge for that reason, right? It changes the way defenses are playing because of that speed. So the conversation with Quez is kind of like it's in the past. It's been, does he deserve more targets? Like, is he frustrated? He thinks he should get more targets. He's 4th or 5th in the pecking order. But if he's used as like your downfield decoy, if you will, to clear out space for AJ, for Devontae, for Dallas, I like him in that role, and I don't know if Olamide gives you that dimension as much.
I agree, but that should be his role.
Yeah.
No more of these screens. Okay, he doesn't break tackles.
Yeah.
That disparity of playing time between him and Zaccheaus needs to stop. Let him play. Let those 11 personnel snaps, they should be about 50-50. Quez's role should be to run deep. Let's try him on like 1 or 2 deep shots a game,
Mm-hmm.
But the short stuff, he's not good at it.
Yeah. Well, so Mike in the chat says it's actually Sirianni, who's, as we said, the press conference is going on now. Nick was asked about that and praised Quez for running clear outs, which I don't know if that's faint praise but that's the role he should have. And that when he's running that clear out, if he's one-on-one against the safety and he's beat him, throw it deep to him. But yeah, I agree. Don't try to get him the ball in space. Let that be Devontae. Let that be AJ. Let that be Dallas. Let that be DeAndre. Don't throw these like quick screens to Quez Watkins.
Next time you get a 2nd and 2, let's take a deep shot to Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that 3 times a game. That's fine. But
Yes.
The rest of the stuff, they've got to make a change there.
Yeah. So I see a few people in the chat saying at this point I would take Devin Allen. I mean, I think Quez's speed's a little. Oh well, I mean, Devin Allen's an Olympian.
Literally faster.
Yeah,
but
yeah, Devin Allen's an Olympian. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Quez has.
Devin Allen is the fastest guy on the team. That's the truth.
On a track. Yeah, on a track. Yeah, probably Yeah,
he's the fastest. He's the fastest guy on the team. True. Are you going to tell me DeAndre Swift? No,
I'm not going to. I'm not debating this.
It's not even close.
And Devin Allen, if you're watching, you've proven it in the Olympics. Yes, I hear.
Remember, AJ Brown was asked about this last year or earlier this year. Is like, who's the fastest guy on the team? He's like, you guys joking? We have an Olympian. Yeah, it's not even close.
Yes, exactly. Agree. Agree. I think Quez gives them
necessarily.
Yeah, I think Quez gives them that dimension, but I'm with you that you don't want to get Quez on these short screens. There's other guys I would give the ball to for sure.
How about the offensive line and Sua Opeta just stepping right in? No questions asked.
Well, credit to Jeff Stoutland, right? The offensive line was awesome. I saw, as I said, I want to be transparent. I think that's important. I haven't gone back and watched the whole game, but I did see some stuff on Baldy's timeline.
Yep.
And we're gonna have Brian Baldy here tomorrow, and we'll get a breakdown. But I've seen this in the past with backup offensive linemen who've stepped in and have done decently under Jeff Stoutland. Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Matt Pryor. I mean they've had guys who have done this. And
I gotta take a shot at Matt Pryor, poor guy.
What's that?
Go ahead.
I'm not taking a shot. I'm giving him credit.
Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Matt Pryor.
So I really think I really think Sua just gave them exactly what they wanted. Also, Sua was instrumental in terms of, I don't know if we would call it a silent count, but whatever count they were using.
That little.
Yeah, exactly. So he would look back at Jalen, and then he would tap Kelsey,
right,
and Kelsey would snap it. I say that because there's a certain amount of like intelligence, situational awareness to be able to do that and then still look up and block your guy. Sua Opeta has been here for 5 years. That is like hard to fathom. You don't really have backups for 5 years. And he knows the language. He speaks Stoutland. He's in his graduate year at Stoutland University here.
Sure.
And I think we're seeing the byproduct of that.
The only thing you said that I disagree with is I don't think it takes like that much extra skill to be able to turn back, tap somebody, and just still play your position. I mean,
okay.
As a fifth-year player,
I'm just saying there's a lot going on. It's like changing lanes and eating a sandwich at the same time, right?
What? No, it's not.
Or changing lanes and drinking coffee at the same time.
But he's not really doing them at the same time. It's one after the other.
He does one and he turns around. I mean, look.
It's like tapping your cleats before an at-bat.
Because he looks up, the snap comes, and then all of a sudden, number 99 is coming right at you.
Yeah, but that's just playing the position.
You try blocking Aaron Donald, okay?
There's nothing to
Seriously,
do with.
I mean.
You can't just turn this into you try blocking Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like.
It's one after the other.
Bo,
he's looking back, he's tapping Kelsey, and then he's playing the play.
Bo, that would be like.
He's not looking back as he's playing the play.
Okay, so tomorrow before you say, hello, everybody, I'm going to say, I'm going to say, Bo, what did you do last night for dinner? Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. But it's not even a thing that he has to think through. He just looks back and then he taps the guy. It's like taking a breath. It's like a very simple thing to do.
Just let the record state that Bo is saying Suopeta wasn't that impressive.
Yeah,
and
I
I was
what
saying
he did was
Suo-
what
and I
was
saying
impressive
Suo was.
in between the snaps, not the, oh my gosh, I can't believe he had the mental dexterity to be able to look behind him before the ball was snapped.
So now he's ripping on Weber State also. Well, sorry, it's not Wake Forest.
Unbelievable. All right, well, Zach, maybe they've got Weber State merch at FOCO, because FOCO is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. It is the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It is football and tailgating season. Overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, everything you need for a game. FOCO has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome pieces for our sets. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. So get the best gear around by using the link in our description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY for 10% off.
Real quick here. So Sirianni said in his press conference today about Bradley Roby, they didn't want to put him in a position where he had to play the entire game. They didn't think that would be fair to him.
Yeah, that sort of makes sense.
Okay.
And, I can't say definitively what I thought about his performance, because you can't really tell from the TV copy, but it did seem like things settled down when he was playing full time. So
certainly the second half he played more and they were better in the second half.
I do think that, it's partly an indictment on what they thought of Josh Jobe, but I think the real thing is they just wanted to get Bradbury back outside. And so
yes, absolutely.
I have no doubt that it will be, Roby full time in the slot for the next couple weeks as they evaluate him.
I agree with you there for sure.
All right, Zach, let's circle back on a couple of things from last week. Goose Wisley, you threw your golden egg on the one that was both 50-50. You had Puka Nacua has an even number of receiving yards. Unfortunately, he had 71 receiving yards, while you gave me the 2-pointer on the Eagles receive the opening kickoff, which they did. That put me up 2-0. I put my golden egg on Aaron Donald has at least half a sack versus yours, which was the Eagles defensive tackles combined for 0 sacks. So neither of us hit there. I stood up 2-0. You get a point on an Eagles player scores his first touchdown of the season. Dallas Goedert did that for you. I had an Aaron Donald sack thing again. That didn't happen. We both get a point on Jalen Hurts has a run of 15-plus yards, and Jalen Hurts rushes for 40-plus yards. That puts me up 3-1. Yeah, no, 3-2. Then you tied it up with Jalen Hurts rushes for over 38 yards, whereas I had A.J. Brown has the Eagles' longest play from scrimmage. Dallas Goedert had the Eagles' longest play from scrimmage, so we're tied 3-3. Then we had the head-to-head showdown on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith receiving yards versus Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua receiving yards. I had the Rams duo. The Rams duo took it. Obviously, Devontae Smith only had 6 yards. We should talk about that in a second. So I go up 4-3. You had the Rams win the game, and I had the Eagles win the game by 10-plus points. No blood there. You had the Rams score a touchdown on their opening drive. You tie it up 4-4, and so it comes down to me. At least 6 of the Eagles' first 10 offensive plays are either a pass attempt or a sack. And they opened the game pass, 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 run, pass, pass, 5-1, DeAndre Swift run, Jalen Hurts scramble, Jalen Hurts run, Jalen Hurts incomplete pass over the middle. 6 out of 10, a win for me. I go up 3-1 on the season.
Okay, it's a long year.
What do you make of the Devontae Smith aspect of this whole thing?
Just the way the cookie crumbles. Is that an analogy the chat's happy with? They didn't like my analogy before. Sorry.
I don't think that's an analogy.
Or that's not even. Sorry. I'm on 3 hours of sleep.
That's all right.
Here, okay?
It's not like, writing is your vocation.
Sorry. Is that a reference that the chat's happy with? Yeah, I think there are going to be games when Devontae, look, you're not going to have like AJ, Dallas, and Devontae all having big games. At some points, when 2 of them are over 100 yards, someone gets the short end of the stick. Yesterday, it was Devontae. There have been games when, obviously, Devontae's had a big game, and certainly Dallas has been quiet. Week 2 was AJ was quiet. I think this is, I've been saying this, I'm not touting a company line. I'm just saying my honest opinion, which I think is consistent with Sirianni's honest opinion and Brian Johnson's honest opinion. Pick your head up. At the end of the year, the numbers are going to be what they need to be. That said, there's a human dynamic here. There's a human element. And I know the TV copy showed Devontae Smith walking down the sideline.
A very lonely, long walk.
Nick Sirianni kind of consoling. I don't want to say consoling him, but speaking to him there. The human element of any of this cannot be dismissed because we saw it with Dallas Goedert. We saw it with A.J. Brown. These are competitive guys who in different situations would be the top target on their teams, or at least would be getting a wide percentage of it. And so I'm not making too much of it. I do think when you pick up at your head at the end of the year, Devontae Smith is going to have a big season, but there are going to be games that look like yesterday.
Yeah, I think in the big picture, that's right. I'm not worried about Devontae Smith's production, but I think the human dynamic is a thing that is very much on their radar. We know that it was a thing that they were worried about last week from Dallas Goedert's perspective, and now it's going to be like, okay, we better get Devontae 3 targets on the opening drive against the Jets. Yeah,
but I also think there has to be a level of sophistication among us as reporters. Like, every time someone doesn't have a big game, it's not, when are you going to get this guy involved? I mean, AJ and Dallas went over 100 yards. I think it was a big story last week with Dallas Goedert because you had a 4-game sample size. I think week 2 to week 3, given that AJ Brown, we saw the sideline.
I don't think that I'm putting this on the reporters because Devontae Smith is the one who's going for a long walk on the sideline.
Okay,
right? Like if Devontae Smith doesn't do anything, then we shouldn't read too much into it. But if the players are themselves reacting on the sidelines to their lack of targets, it is obviously a thing that is going on.
Okay, sure. All right, fair. I see your point. I just like Devontae's gonna. So if
but he's the one who is not pouting is too strong of a word, but he's the one who's reacting to the way that this game is going.
Well,
by the way, I was like a real chuckle on the Quez Watkins play. Like the way that Devontae throws his hands up when he's so mad at Quez for not following the block was very funny.
Yeah, like Devontae is. All these guys think they're open at instant, and Devontae probably should have had more targets, right? I just don't like a week when Dallas Goedert goes over 100 and AJ Brown goes over 100. Someone's going to get the short end of the stick. It was Devontae Smith. I just don't think.
Sure, but if Devontae is on the sideline, I
want
gassing up
to be competitive.
Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown, then nobody's making a big deal of it. But we're talking about it because that was his reaction.
I want my wide receiver to be competitive, right? Like I want if we're on a show and you make 4 straight good points and I make 4 lousy points, or I don't make a good point, at some point I should be like, man, I need to do better. I don't see us
as competitors. I see us as teammates.
Well, these guys are teammates too. But there'll be times when, I mean, they're not competing. AJ's not competing with Devontae per se. But no, there'll be times when I'll walk out of this studio and I'll be like, I didn't have a good show today, right? I need to be better tomorrow. Or, my points weren't good enough. Or you didn't pitch me in that situation, right? Or you spent too much time talking about me changing and not enough time talking about football. So I just kind of think that if there's 3 weeks that go by and Devontae has 8 catches for 80 yards over those 3 weeks, it's a bigger story. I think when it happens 1 week, I get the reaction. I'm not like, I think the human dynamic of all of this cannot be dismissed. And I think one thing that the Eagles tend to do with the media is like pretend that the human element doesn't exist.
But
like,
I think that's the whole thing. We saw that with the
Jalen and Carson situation.
Is that no one's complaining about the target disparity or the lack of production. People are noting that the Eagles have a bit of an issue in juggling all of these egos.
Sure. But again, like it's going to be fixed. It's going to be my guess is it's going to be fixed next week. That's why I just have a hard time. I thought the Dallas Goedert thing was more pronounced because it was over 4 weeks. Devontae's been their leading receiver in 2 of 5 games this year?
You tell me. You're the encyclopedia.
Yeah, I think 2 of 5 games this year. So again, I think it's gonna. Yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal. And I want my wide receivers by nature are always like that. And Quez Watkins was like that at the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, I've covered this franchise for 12 years. I can't tell you how many wide receivers, whether it was Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, Jordan Matthews wasn't as much like that, but I mean, Alshon, I can go down the list. It's like guys think they should get the ball, and they should get the ball. You're a good player. You should get the ball. There's only one ball to go around.
It is a little bit, you think about like you got to take a 6-hour cross-country flight. You fly all this way and you get 2 targets. Like, what the hell, man? Couldn't that have been a home game? I could have at least driven home after the game. Like, give me a break. All right. Well, Zach, the one place that we are competitors is the roster drafts. And so let's circle back to this. I don't know if you have the graphic, Bree, but
thank you, Bree.
I mean, what an unbelievable performance from Bree here. Got up on there. Again, I go into this thinking I'm ready to give you a win here, Zach. How do
I not have a win here?
You got Jalen Hurts over Matthew Stafford. Okay, DeAndre Swift, Cooper Kupp played well,
the better quarterback, the better running back.
Okay, you've got Kupp and Goddard, but your offensive line is a little bit shaky. I've got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Your left tackle did not play, bro.
And I've got Puka. I've got Jack Stoll, who obviously had a monster game. I've got you used your first pick on Aaron Donald, but I've got Kelsey and Opeta and Lane Johnson. So that's taking that down. I don't know. Make your case.
Okay, first off, I have the better quarterback in this game,
the
better running
Reddick
back in this game,
okay.
the better tight end in this game. Your left tackle didn't play. I got Mailata Dickerson. Okay, I'm looking at this here. Aaron Donald commands all this attention, so I have Hassan Reddick, who had 2 sacks. Now Fletcher Cox didn't play, but that's why I have Milton Williams here. Okay, I got
Sidney Brown, who didn't play.
Yeah, I got Sidney. So that's a little bit of a hole there. But I got Bradley Roby at corner for me. Yeah, I mean, I think I won here. Jalen Hurts had 300 yards passing, 70 yards rushing. Dallas Goedert had 8 for 110 and a touchdown. I don't know how you can sway this in your direction here. I mean, Jalen Carter, yeah, but I got Hassan Reddick.
Yeah. But Reddick's going up against Lane Johnson. He's not doing that against Lane. You know what, Zach? In the spirit of us being teammates and not competitors, and you having flown cross country for 36 hours and changing in front of the eastern part of Philadelphia, I'm going to go ahead and declare myself the winner again.
You're declaring yourself the winner?
No, I think you get this one. I will give you this one.
Thank you. And by the way,
I still think it's debatable, but I'm going to give you this one.
When we play this next week, there's a notable absence for the Jets. Vera Tucker out for the season. So the Jets' offensive line is weakened with the Eagles.
Can I tell you something that's a little bit on my radar about the Jets before we go?
What's that?
This whole thing about like they made Nathaniel Hackett the captain before the game yesterday against the Broncos, and they give him the game ball, and it's like, we got to win this one for Nathaniel Hackett because Sean Payton talks smack. Like, I'm sorry. This is not like, the water boy who has some terminal disease. Like, it's the offensive coordinator who did a bad job last year. Like, they got to stop treating him like he's Tiny Tim. Like,
yeah, I mean, but man, Sean Payton,
I mean, that's true.
If you're going to talk, man, you got to back it up a bit, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. But like the whole, we got to rally around Nathaniel Hackett. Like, let's take it easy a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, the one thing that I know about professional football teams is they love something to rally around, right? Yeah. I mean, if they're going to find something, and it's going to be their rallying cry. I've never seen a bunch of people who need to be like, yeah, you got to, and by the way, we in the media eat those storylines up, right?
That's true.
So we're complicit in it as well.
Well, we've all got content to fill, right?
That's true. We have content Tuesday, tomorrow at
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Friday, 2:30 a.m. I'm sorry, 2:30 p.m.
I wish.
I wish it was 2:30 a.m. Emily wishes it was 2:30 a.m. because once I drive back, we're driving out to Happy Valley.
Oh, that's right.
So, so a big week. We're going to have Brian Baldinger tomorrow. And I love the Sunday to Sunday schedule that we're in. The Eagles don't fly again until week 11. Okay, the only road trips in here are the Jets and the Commanders. So, yeah, we can settle into a good routine here.
Big for you.
I do like routine.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We thank everybody for listening and for watching. As Zach said, back tomorrow at 1 p.m. So enjoy the Phillies game tonight. And we will talk to you tomorrow with Brian Baldinger, probably from this fresh studio. Looking good here.
I'll bring a phone book like someone recommended.
Okay. You love those jokes. It's your favorite thing.
If I make them, it means I can take them, right?
Yeah, that's true. All right. So for Bree and for Zach and for Zach's grandpa, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like